joined today by Paul Ingham. Paul, as many of you may know, is Vice President of Sales and Marketing with Thermogenics, a leading boiler manufacturer and service organization. He's also the chair of the Canadian Boiler Society, and we have interactions there. Thermogenics we see as a leader in products and services, where the focus is to extract as much useful heat as possible out of fossil fuels that we will continue for the foreseeable future to burn in order to service buildings, in this case, in particular, hospital facilities. And Paul, I'm particularly interested in learning more about how your company, and essentially in the burning fossil fuel business, is both envisaging and adapting to the low carbon future. You know, what's coming. The world is changing very rapidly. How is the boiler industry viewing that? How are they adjusting it to it? How are they supporting it? So could you tell us a little bit first about your position, your role within Thermogenics and the Canadian Boiler Society?
I think your introduction is perfect, but I started with Thermogenics in 1999. Essentially sweeping the floors and work my way through the various trades involved with manufacturing, industrial steam boilers, critical hot water boilers, things like that. And today, as you noted, I sit as Vice President of Sales and Marketing for the company. A lot of focus, not just in Canada, but throughout the US and North America. And in addition to that, I try and give back to so many organizations that have educated me over the years, like Canadian Boiler Society. So I've been an active member for well over 10 years, as the company's been active for at least 40 now. And I also actually participate routinely with the American Boiler Manufacturers Association. I know greening is getting into the US now a bit more, so I thought that would be pertinent to note. But same idea, just a much bigger organization in the US, specifically around boilers and burners. And that's a bit of a background on me.
That's great. Well qualified for this conversation. So the world is changing, Paul, and from your perspective and Thermogenics' perspective, and I guess the Canadian Boiler Society's perspective, how are you seeing the concerns, the requirements, the demands of your market, in particular hospitals, in response to again the climate crisis and the fact that we're in this trajectory towards low carbon? Have you seen much change yet?
We are seeing change, most definitely. The evolution in particular as it pertains to boilers appears to be in the grades in which heat is required. I recently did a little write-up on something similar to this leading into the Canadian Healthcare Engineering Society's national meeting. But boilers are still existing. Boilers are predominantly still requiring fossil fuels, natural gas with a backup fuel of some sort, whether that's propane or number 2 oil. But the style of boiler is evolving fairly quickly. We're going from larger traditional steam plants to low-grade split systems where you have some steam and some hot water. And then furthermore, that low-grade heat's being utilized by other technologies.
That picks up all on that approach. If the market is changing, albeit slowly, how are the products and services that Thermogenics is putting out there? How is that adapting? How is that adjusting to new demands?
Certainly, we're seeing larger plants reduce in size. So, we've had to be cognizant of performance on the product with relation to turn down. So load profiles vary significantly now when you separate hot water off of a steam plant. You get heavy peaks and valleys. So, good performance on turn down is important. Ensuring that you have lower NOx technologies in the burner. Waste heat recovery is much more of a conversation now. And certainly just, we're constantly striving for new types of input materials. So new fuels, alternate fuels, and certainly electrification is a big part of the conversation.
Give us an example of what this looks like in the real world. Can you think of one of your leading customers?
When I did my last little write-up for the healthcare folks, I had to bucket into two worlds, because you have those that will be stuck with their facility for at least another 5 or 10 years. It just doesn't make economic sense to completely ransack the boiler room. But the technology is here and now to make it more efficient, make it greener, reduce the carbon footprint. So there's the retrofit world, and then there's the green construction. And some of our colleagues who are part of the organization here can speak well to new design. But for the retrofit folks, it really does look like, okay, let's separate off the low-grade heat users to better technologies. Maybe it's condensing hot water boilers or even heat pumps for that matter, no boilers at all. But then those that still have a steam usage, that peak and valley load profile is very dynamic. So it's smaller boilers, more efficient boilers. Maximizing heat recovery is critical for that. Usually the only steam requirements left in the healthcare facility are for humidification, some sterilization, and maybe if it's a teaching hospital, there'll be some lab requirements. But those typically require high makeup rates of fresh water into the facility. So using that wide delta T of very cold input water for process grade steam on the output, and quenching the flue and getting every dollar and every drop of carbon out of the flue is critical to the way in which healthcare is, getting better at their footprint, their carbon footprint, but also their overall operating economics.
So some of this work costs money, right? And we know the healthcare sector, certainly in Canada, is pressed for funding. When you have to, how does Thermogenics make the business case for the kind of investments that hospitals need to make in getting towards the low carbon future?
We try and make it a very practical approach for our customers. We really take the time to look into what their goals are. Do you need to keep this place online for another 10 years because your region is investing in a brand new facility? Is this something you're going to have for 15, 20 years, or what's the goal and what's the time frame of the investment is critical to understand. We really do our best to put our clients in touch with everybody who's making a positive change in this space. So the utilities, in particular in Canada, Ontario, Enbridge, tons of incentives out there to make your facility more efficient, to meter your facility, and to not only reduce gas usage, but consequently, you'll reduce your emissions as well. Organizations like Greening are really educating clients to make good decisions. And now we're finding that customers are not just looking at it from the economics, okay, I'm going to save some gas that saves me money on my operating costs, but are we making a positive impact in terms of the green footprint? And does that align with our corporate responsibility? And I think that's really having a big impact, a positive impact on the decision-making criteria and priorities. And we at Thermogenics just try and help guide them through that and then make selections for improvements accordingly.
We're all in this together. You've got a lot of other organizations out there that are having similar challenges, questions, struggles as Thermogenics. Wondering what advice you'd offer to them of the things that you've experienced so far. What do you think that Thermogenics has done that's been the most impactful? What suggestions do you have for other organizations, for other industries around lessons learned, how they might adapt themselves, things that they might aspire to?
I think, customer centricity in terms of you don't just make a solution and then walk away is critical. We remain entirely engaged throughout the process. We have to tackle this stuff fairly quickly, but at the same time, there has to be some kind of structure and understanding of how we're going to get from point A to point B. So I think what we've learned is, you have to create a solution, you have to do it in a sustainable and effective manner, and then you have to execute and help your customer execute themselves in a holistic manner. You don't just swap the boiler out and expect everything's going to be fine overnight. There's a transition of mentality there. There's a transition of ownership there, and everybody has to be aligned in that transition for it to truly be successful. And I think what Thermogenics has learned and what we strive to do well at is be a partner and be holistic in that transition. Otherwise, you won't truly be successful.